Okay, the fourth Huva body. Now remember, the Huva bodies are the spheres of energy that are around us and around the planet and around the galaxy and around the universe. The fourth Huva body is called the Mahara Huva body. It's composed of frequencies and Partakai phasing flashline sequences of the 10th, 11th, and 12th dimensions. It manifests through the D10, 11, and 12 kathara centers and the Maharic shield scalar grid of the fourth harmonic. So, when we're working with the Maharic shield and we're beginning to activate our Maharic shield in our anatomy, we are bringing in the frequencies of the fourth level, the fourth Huva body, the Mahara Huva body. That's our avatar body, if you want to look at it that way. The Maharic shield is part of the level 2 kathara grid. It holds the original imprint for health. This is where, what is health? When your body's operating the way it's supposed to? Our race is so far away from health right now, it's frightening because of so many of the DNA distortions. However, if we use the Maharic shield, that is the beginning, the Maharic shield, activating the Maharic shield, which pulls up your Maharic shield pillar, that's the beginning of running the mathematics, the original mathematical program of health, which means your 12 DNA strand, 144 fire letter sequence, which we'll talk about later, mathematical program that your body is supposed to run on, where you have 144 chromosomes, where you're much taller. You're not going to get tall overnight. It's going to take a while to get that whole mathematical program back into the body. Good thing too, because your matter particles won't know what to do. They're having this frequency hit them that they haven't felt in over 200,000 years that they've been in density 1. Now 200,000 years is relative when you're out of time, but when you're in time, it's a very long flashline sequence. We have to build up the ability to hold it. One of the other false things that's happening in the New Age movement, the false ascension movement, is you literally have people saying, oh, come to workshop, blop, we'll blast you. There you go, the Melchizedeks are doing this. The Templar Melchizedeks. They're giving them initiations, and they're telling you, you're 12-strand activated now. Bye-bye, go home, you're fine. Which are is implanted right now, usually, and not with stuff that's going to activate your strands. They're also teaching that there are 12 single heli strands, little twist of technicals. They're teaching, in many of the ascension teachings out there, that each heli is a separate strand. So what they're calling a 12-strand is what we call a 6-strand. So there's a lot of tricks going on out there. What we're teaching you here is how all of the 12 coding actually works. You have 12 double helix strands. You have a Maharic shield and a Mahara Huva body that holds the mathematical coding of the original DNA template. And this is what we're going to use to begin to reset the imprint for health. We're going to reset the imprint for health, which is the divine blueprint. And we're going to progressively work with that. There are many layers of the auric field and the chakras and things that we need to work with later. But you can work on your chakras all you want. You can work on your axiotonals and your meridians, and you can even work on your shields all you want. But if you don't take it back into the kathara grid, the first level, where the distortions are being held, they will always override whatever healing you do on the surface. It's like having a sore underneath the skin that has something that needs to be removed from it, a sliver that's festering. And you can put as many band-aids on it as you want, and the skin might even heal temporarily over it, but the infection's still building in there because what's in there that needs to be fixed is still not removed. So we are going to go to the core, the kathara grid level 1 template. That's what we clear when we begin the process of running the Maharic shield. It also has the fringe benefit of giving you temporary protection from anything messing with your fields. It will also help you to pop any implants you might have picked up along the way that you didn't know you had and don't really want to know you have. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. There we go. Okay, the Maharic shield can be used to repattern the kathara grid holographic template back to its original imprint for health. So when we activate the frequencies of the Maharic shield that actually pops up as an energy field below the feet, we have the ability to then run D12 current, little subharmonics of it, at first, they're little bursts, nanosecond bursts of D12 frequency subharmonics come through. That's what it means to begin activating your DNA. But when you activate your Maharic shield, you're activating the 12th subharmonic in the DNA template for the first time since ancient times where we're able to do this. It will restore in the kathara grid, the kathara level 1 grid. The way to recode those kathara centers is to activate the Maharic shield, because that has the imprint for all of those 12 centers in it. To recode anything to the D12 frequency, you have to first open D12 frequency into the body, where you can anchor it and bring it down in. And that's what we're learning to do with these processes. The flashline sequences of dimension 12 can override and correct faulty flashline sequences that manifest as distortions within the Kathara grid and the Huva body shields. So if we remember, everything are flashline sequences. We can look at DNA template distortions and distortions within our 15-dimensional anatomy, or at least the 11 and below dimensional parts of it, as distortions in the flashlines, where the rhythms are supposed to be a certain way, but they're off rhythm. They're not, in synchronization with the original flash rhythms of D12 and the divine blueprint, which throws off everything, our time orientation, our consciousness orientation. It gets us stuck in space-time. So the distortions, they have several levels to them. At their core, the distortions that cause the DNA twist that we have right now are distortions in the flashline sequences. There is a natural way that each dimension is supposed to have its own flashline sequence. Each DNA strand, each level of our body, of our subtle body anatomy, we have a level that corresponds to D1, dimension 1, dimension 2, dimension 3, dimension 4. The parts of our body that correspond to a dimension are supposed to carry the natural mathematical signature of that dimension. That's supposed to be in the core template. And from there, our diversification comes out, our individuation. We build on by using that flashline sequence and combining more different rhythms within it. But if that core rhythm is distorted, it literally knocks us out of alignment with the natural rhythm of the time matrix, which creates mutations within the physicality. That's what we're dealing with. They also manifest as chelon clusters, clusters of crystalline forms of energy that don't belong in the subtle body anatomy. And those things, in turn, manifest as chemicals in the DNA that don't belong there, which creates hormonal deviation within the body. We actually poison ourselves before we hit 100 years old, the way the DNA is working right now. The body kills itself. We're all suicidal and don't even know it. When we begin to work with repatterning from the Maharic shield, bringing it up through the core templates, we are starting at the deepest level to move the healing up through each of those levels, where it'll start to restore first the flashline sequences back to their natural rhythm. Dimension 1 flashline distortions will be put back to the natural Dimension 1 flashline sequence. Dimension 2 back to its natural one. The current that has the ability to fix all of them is the D12 current, because within the D12 current, remember we talked about how D2 actually has the D1 flashline and the D2 flashline. D3 has D1 and D2 in it. Well, D12 has the natural mathematical pattern for all of the ones below it. So no matter how distorted they might get, if you run D12 back through, you're resetting the original pattern. And that's what we're doing with Maharic recoding. It's called Maharic recoding because we're recoding or repatterning the Maharic level, the D12 imprint, which is the Christos, divine blueprint, back into our bodies or the planet. Because when we work with the Templar courses, the workshop that's on the Templar, we are doing the same types of things for the planet, because the planet is in crisis, just like our bodies have been in crisis. And crisis on a planet in a Stargate cycle can result in pole shift. So we're working on things to help prevent that by clearing the grids, but we have to start with clearing our own body grids. And that's what Kathara healing is about. Okay, now, to begin the process of activating the Maharic shield, it takes us into the world of symbol codes. I talked about before how symbol codes are actually an image that we see in light. If we see it out here or in here, it's actually made of light. So it is a light symbol that has a very specific mathematical coding. That's what gives it its shape. When we know what symbols to use to direct frequency, we begin to have the power to directly interface with the mathematical programs the way they're supposed to run. So if you have a mathematical program in your body that's not working how it should be in divine right order, you will be able to, if you know what the symbol is that holds the real mathematical program that's supposed to be there, use that symbol and put it back in. The symbols are also the keys to opening seals in the body, because the symbols will allow, if you put a symbol into a certain chakra and then you run frequency through it, you're activating that mathematical code at the moment in that particular area of the body. If you want to open certain seals, if you want to activate your D12 current in your body, you need to use the D12 symbol code, the image, the symbol mathematical program, and you need to put it someplace and run it in a certain way. And we use the breath as well. Breath is a very important part of learning to run energy. So if you want to take a mathematical symbol and say hold it in your mind, and then you want to move that so it can, let's say, be put into chakra 12, How are you going to get it from your brain into chakra 12, which is below your feet? You're going to inhale and gain some momentum, and then push it down. The inhale and the exhale breath. Our breath is intimately connected with Merkaba spin, which is connected to Partakai phasing rhythms and how fast flash lines will flash, the rhythms of flash lines. When we start to direct our breathing in specific ways, we have, it's like the natural flash lines for one dimension. There is so much room for variation on that line. That's why we have variation for individuality. That's why everybody has a little bit different breathing rhythm and heart rhythm and all of those things. We can learn to work with our breathing rhythms to either speed up within the range that's natural, the flash line sequences in that area of the body, or slow them down, depending on what we're trying to do. We can use the breath. It's the push-pull mechanism. It's what puts energy behind what you're trying to energize. There are all sorts of different ways of directing it. When we do transmissions, there are ways to transmit directly through the chakras, where you look at it and you can go into a room, inhale, you go into a room and just go, nobody else knows you're doing it, but you project a field, a frequency. I hurt myself. I lost myself. Over there somewhere. No. So the breath is going to be a vital part in it. Now, it's not one of those things where you have to drive yourself crazy trying to go get your biofeedback machine to find out what is my breathing doing. I don't know. It happens so often I don't pay attention, because most of us, what is your breathing rhythm? I haven't a clue. You have to stop and think and then listen. But when you stop and think and get quiet to try to listen, you tend to hold your breath, so you can't hear your breathing rhythm. So wait a minute. What I usually tell people is when we're going to go into any type of exercise, whatever it is, just try to pay attention for a minute of what you're breathing at. Because as soon as you try to pay attention, it changes. Just the fact that you're going to try to pay attention. Just try to tell yourself right now, you're going to slow your breathing rhythm in half. And leave it at that for now, because it will start to bring you down into what's the alpha brainwave pattern, which means you can access your body currents better, your lower frequency currents. You need to bring the higher frequency currents up through the lower frequency currents, and you can direct it through the frequencies through the body consciousness a bit better when you slow down. When you slow your breath down just a bit, not to the point where you're going so I'm not going to tell you hold it for 14 seconds between. It also helps if you put a pause between inhale and exhale. If you put a pause at the bottom and the top of each breath, it gives the oxygen exchange time to happen. It gives the body more time to let the energy move between all the levels of the template. Right now, we breathe so fast and so shallow compared to what we once did. It's amazing we can still stay functional because we're getting hardly any amount of life force in. We're breathing life force in and out when we breathe air. But air itself is not the only part of the life force. When we breathe in and out, we are controlling the flow of primal life force current through our DNA template, through our Merkaba fields. So when we begin to get conscious control, just a little bit, realizing that we have a breath that we can direct here that will directly give us an ability to interface with how fast and how smooth life force currents are moving through our body, breathing becomes a whole lot more fun. Oh, there's something I can do with this. This is why some of the Eastern philosophies would teach people years and years and years of learning how to get breath control. And bless those people, because they got the hard way. Like things that we teach now would take them like 500 years to get to the point where they'd teach this, because they'd take the first thing, like Om. And you could do Om for 20 years before your master would tell you the next syllable. Right? And you figure out about how many eons would it take you to become a master if you're going to do one syllable a lifetime. Okay, so, but they did know, the Eastern philosophies and Hindu philosophies, who also know about chakras, have known about, it was called prana in a lot of the different ones. The Eastern philosophies would refer to it as prana. But what they're referring to, the primal life force currents that are carried with the molecules in the air that we breathe. It's not as if oxygen is separate from it, but oxygen isn't the whole story. Oxygen is only the outer manifestation and the illusion that is one of the helpful carriers of the life force currents. Tomorrow we'll get into specifically what those life force currents are and how they come into the body and how we can use Merkaba to amplify them. Once we know how to run what is called a Christos Merkaba, there's a big difference between a general Merkaba and how many people are teaching it these days out there in the New Age movement, and a Christos Merkaba. A Christos Merkaba is a harmonic Merkaba. It's built of sets of 3 dimensions, not just singular dimensional aspects that are being worked with, and it runs the D12 current, which means it gets it on its right spin. Okay, we'll learn about what's being done with Merkaba out there right now, because you'd be amazed how we're being hijacked right now and taught how to amplify our own genetic distortions to serve somebody else's agenda. All right? Christos Merkaba is different than what is being taught out there as partial Merkaba training. Partial Merkaba will not tell you about the D12 frequency. It will not tell you how to activate your Maharic shield. It won't tell you that your Merkaba is connected to your shields and to your Huva bodies. It won't tell you the whole anatomy, because you might figure it out if you knew. All right? So we'll get into Merkaba tomorrow. But today we're going to deal with something called the Hierophant symbol. The Hierophant symbol, the core of it, is the D12 symbol code. And it's a symbol we've all seen a lot of places all over the place. Thing is, you don't have to be Jewish to use it. What they call, and you don't have to get into the Star of David stuff. It belonged to somebody else long before David adopted it. All right? It's a 6-pointed star. Now, flat 6-pointed star is where we start the activation process, which means if you take a 6-pointed star, technically that's a symbol for a Merkaba vehicle, which is a star tetrahedron shaped 3-dimensional thing, which is a different coding than a simple drawing, which I'll show you in a minute, of a 6-pointed star. The 6-pointed star, flat drawing, is the beginning of sending the mathematical instructions to your Maharic shield to tell it to begin transmitting the D12 subharmonics. You don't want to transmit D12 frequency pure before you get the rest of your body and systems able to handle subharmonics, because you blow yourself up and you can't do it. Your own Christos level won't let you do it. You can only pull so much frequency at any time that is not going to cause any harm to you. And your other levels of self will regulate that. You, in your Christos state, knows how much you can pull, and it will shut off the current when your body has enough at any given moment. So you can't hurt yourself with these techniques. You can't OD on Christos frequency. Yeah. You can get a little buzzy sometimes. I mean, it's really funny. One of the things, people notice, and you probably have, that we smoke cigarettes. It's always smoke, and it's not a thing we endorse. But there's a reason, because at times the frequencies get so high in our fields that I know you have different experiences with it that are a little different than mine, but it's in the same vein. It becomes difficult to keep focused here, where things start to disappear. Like people's faces all turn into an energy field, and you can't see individuals anymore. You just see lights. When you use things like certain chemicals like nicotine, it brings you down. It shuts down some of the DNA, so it gets you into body faster. I don't endorse using these kinds of things, but I want you to understand that when you start running frequency, there are some very strange effects that you may get at first. They're effects that belong to you. They're the part of what your consciousness is going to experience as it expands. But you may find yourself getting really buzzy, where you feel like a little bee buzzing around. You can almost hear yourself buzz, like an electrical hum that runs in your fields. You may find that a few too many times you notice street lights going out when you walk under them or drive by them in a car. Just a few so many times that it becomes strange. Why do street lights go out when I drive by them in my car? Because you're blowing electrical extra stuff in your fields, because you have a lot of buzzy energy in your fields. Most of the time with that is you're triggering the light sensors in them. They're picking it up, and the sensors are picking up the frequencies in your field, the subtle frequencies. You might start blowing computers or magnetic strips on hotel door cards or credit cards. If you work with the Maharic Shield technologies and run your Maharic Shield frequencies on a daily or at least every 2-day basis, you will be able to get rid of that extra static buildup, because it's static buildup that's causing that. It means your DNA templates brought this stuff in, but the rest of your system can't process it yet. So it's hanging out in your auric field, buzzing all over the place. It might also make people very nervous, like babies might cry when you go near them, animals might run. I mean, things like that. I don't know why. It's like, what'd I do? When you work with the Maharic Shield technologies, it will get rid of some of this. Now, if you go into activating major levels of high frequency codes that have to do with the planetary grids, which we begin doing in the round tables and the Templar work, That's like, streetlights still do their thing when we drive under them. Even though we clear out the system and try to like send down into the earth whatever energy's extra that we don't need in our fields. So you'll still have some of the effects. But you won't hurt yourself running D12 frequency. You can't put so much in that's going to cause you damage, because literally the chakras and the shields will close and stop the flow of energy so it doesn't blow up its own system. It's self-regulating, because it's not just an it. It's a part of you that's very conscious, aware, and intelligent up in the D12 frequency level that says, okay, that's enough. You know, you don't want, like, do you ever see goldfish that if you keep feeding them, bless them, they'll still eat and eat and eat until they pop their stomachs and kill themselves? You know, your Christos avatar level won't let you do this to yourself with energy. All right. Now, the higher... I've never used that. I've never thought of that before, actually.
I'm glad.
Yeah, some really weird ones are coming out today. It must be the consciousness field. You guys hold such a high vibe, it's like kicking in some other higher level of humor that even I'm trying to get used to. Okay. The Hierophant symbol code is a scalar standing wave pattern containing the electrotonal programs of the 11th and 12th dimensions combined. The Hierophant symbol code serves as a frequency waveguide through which the Maharic shield can be activated to run 11th and 12th dimensional frequency through the Kathara grid for repatterning the imprint for health within the core holographic template of the body. Okay, the Maharic shield can be activated with the Hierophant symbol. Now, if you notice, we're not just dealing with D12 frequency, we're dealing with the 11th and 12th dimensional frequency too. When you use D11 and D12 together, it creates the full Christos ray, because it's pulling in the whole spectrum from the antiparticle universe as well. So you're not just running D12 current here, which would give you a pure white current. You are running the 12 frequency bands here and the 12, actually 11 and a half of the 12 from the other side, because you blow everything out of manifestation if you put the 12 and 12 together. So it comes out as a pale silver current. And that is the full D12 Maharatic ray, they call it, or the platinum ray. Some people in the New Age movement have coined that phrase, the platinum ray. They're referring to the same thing, but they're teaching you to use it in sub-increments so you can twist it in ways that weren't meant to be twisted. What we're doing is we're going to teach you how to run the D12 Christos ray, which is 11th and 12th dimensional frequencies combined, which means it is frequency that's going to run through you and your antiparticle double. Your double self in the parallel universe will also, by you working with these healing energies, it will begin to assist and heal the templates of yourself in the double world, which will help. Because right now we're being affected by what's happening in the parallel system, but we don't know it because most of us don't know the parallel system even exists. There's also another place called the inner earth system. We talk about that in the Templar thing a bit more. But as we work with the D12 and D11 frequency combined together, we are making a link between what's called parallel earth, this earth, and inner earth, which are three separate but interconnected reality fields, each of which we have a part of ourself stationed within. So it is a very powerful current. It's much more powerful than trying to run D12 as a white frequency. You know how everybody likes to run white light? They're running still a polarized D12 current. It's polarized because it's only the particum universe current, which is the base magnetic, which is over here where we are, where we're stationed. They're not running the electricals, the other half of it, that is part of the particle universe. So when we run D11 and D12, we're combining particle and antiparticle currents, which is the strongest pure Christos imprint, because you're actually carrying the imprint of the divine imprint of both sides, of both polarities, into one. So it is stronger than the pure white light. And a lot of people like to, pure white light's the highest, or gold light. Gold light happens to be D8. Aim higher. Pale white is like, white is nice, it's a pearly white, it's very pretty, it's D12, but it's D12 polarized. What you want is D12 non-polarized, which is D12 plus D11.5, where you say D11 from the other side, combines it into a full Christos ray. So that's the frequency we're running. It is a waveguide, which means it's going to guide the frequencies of consciousness into the body through the Maharic Shield template. So it's literally serving as a mathematical instruction, like a computer program, to teach that current of how it's supposed to move into the body. The Hierophant symbol is the original D12 symbol code. If you were going to take and give a visual symbol mathematical representation to the D12 flash line sequences and what they are and what all that coding is. The Hierophant symbol, which is the 6-pointed Star of David, is the original symbol code for that. That is the first symbol code. Each of the dimensions have their own symbol code. And eventually we'll learn how to use each one of them. But we're learning to use the higher ones right now. The symbol codes that directly go with the natural divine blueprint flash line sequences of the higher frequency currents. Because they're the ones that have the power to come in and clear any distortions out of the ones below them. So we start with the D12. When I say D12, I'm referring to this, just so you know. The D12 that is parallel and here. It's the particle antiparticle of full current. All right, using the Hierophant symbol code, the planetary biofeed interface system can be activated to empower the kathara grid repatterning process by drawing frequency from the planetary Maharic shield. Now what we're going to do is when we activate our Maharic shield, we're going to activate the planetary biofeed interface system. It's the point in our bodies and in the planetary grids where our personal kathara grid connects directly to the kathara grid of the planet. So the energies, where are we going to pull energy from? We're going to pull the Maharatic frequency, the D12 frequency, now that it's finally available in the Earth grids. We're going to pull it from the Earth grids into our bodies, and we're going to circulate energy back through. It was always like a love affair between person and planet, because there was a constant inflow of energy, a sharing of energy, a circulation system. Most of our circulation system has been shut off. That's why we've turned into a culture that can actually abuse the Earth as badly as we have right now. In the ancient days, it would be like beating up your mother. I mean, you just never ever do it. You would never make a decision that would hurt a tree or contaminate a lake or do something terrible to the planet. Because the planet was a living being that you knew, and you knew you were a part of it. People didn't feel separate from the natural kingdoms in the ancient days like they do now. The reason they feel separate is because DNA strand 2 that connects to the telluric elemental kingdoms has been primarily shut down. So we can't feel them anymore. We can't feel that connection very strongly. Some of us can, because it depends on how much distortion is in strand 2 template. So we're learning at this point to reconnect not only to the higher parts in the higher dimensional fields, but to reclaim our connection to our mother, our Earth Mother. You could call it a father too. It's really like God. It doesn't have genitalia. It's not genderized. That's not a bad word.
I didn't know that.
I learned it in science class. That's not a bad word. Gender. Let's leave it more simply as that. I wanted to get a point across. So the fact that, why bother making time? I'm not even going there. I'm not. What? You want to talk?
It's not to be confused with an organism.
No.
Right.
No. Using the Hierophant symbol code, yes. We're going to activate the planetary biofeed interface system. And this stuff, the theory takes a while, but the exercises and learning how to use them are really quite simple. The hardest part when you first start is staying awake in them. A lot of people fall asleep. By the time, if you have 26 steps to do, you hit step 4 and you're gone. And somewhere afterwards you come back and say, where'd I go? I think I fell asleep. This is very common. Now, with the Maharic seal one, because it's one of the gentlest ones, not too many people have fallen asleep during that process, at least when we do it in a group. Because in a group, there's more frequency running, so we tend to keep each other up at a higher level. So it's easier when you're first learning to run the frequencies in a group of people, because they will help you and you'll help each other to hold the frequencies, and we'll help you to hold the frequencies as well, because we can hold them in our field. So it creates like a blanket of frequency underneath your feet that'll help keep things open in your template that otherwise would go, oh, I'm tired. I opened for 2 seconds, I'm tired. So you may notice, again, like when you're in a situation with a group and you're running frequency, yeah, I can feel some frequency. You start to actually feel it, because at first you're running currents and you're going, well, my mind is running currents, but I don't feel anything. You know, we're hoping for a blast of frequency where you can go like, zap, yeah, I feel it coming out of my palms, right? After a while you can do that. But at first you'll be lucky if you feel like you're running anything except a hologram in your mind. because it takes a while to get sensitized. Now, some of you may be so good that you feel it instantly. But when you're working in a group, you will find that your abilities are temporarily amplified if the group field is clear and if you're working with D12 frequency. Everybody's helping to bring more little bursts of D12 into the room that's helping everybody else next to them. One of the things that we get so tired from, if you wonder why we kind of run off and disappear for a while after we've been up here, even when I'm doing all the talking and my frequency is coming out my mouth, we're both transmitting frequency. We're holding a field that helps in the learning process, that'll help you guys to whatever processes you run. It's helping you to absorb the information right now. And by the time we get done, we are so tired. We would have been tired if we just stood here and smiled at you and didn't say anything, because we're running frequency. After a while, you'll know it when you're running frequency. And you'll know it especially right after you stop. Because you climb up and you almost notice you don't really notice that you got up into a higher frequency space, or you're actually running current. But when you notice it is when you stop and you go back to what you had before you started running amplified current. You start getting this like droopy, tired feeling, and you might feel like your knees have swelled out to about here, and your feet hurt. I get it in my lower half all the time, and it's just the body is getting used to it. You can blow your frequencies open and run the frequency. But it's like exercising too much. For one day, did you ever go like out and jog 5 miles after you haven't even ran for like 20 years? Day 1 after the fact, you're going, ow. Day 2, you're going, oh. And day 3, you're like this. You're in atrophy because the muscles were not used to that much energy running through them. Well, the same thing happens when you begin to run frequency, and it seems to be the legs and like the lower part of the body, which is key to the lower strands and the lower chakras, that has the hardest time adjusting. So at first, if you don't feel like you're running something, keep doing it. Eventually you will feel those currents. You need to build a critical mass. If you happen to be one of the lucky ones and you get to start feeling it as soon as we start running the exercises, as soon as we learn how to run current, and you actually go, wow, yeah, I'm feeling it, cool. That's good. That shows you have some strand activation that is a little bit advanced compared to people who can't. That doesn't mean anybody's better than anybody else. It may mean that the person next to you that can't feel anything today is going to run loops around you by the end of the week. It doesn't matter. It's not a competition. Okay, so I want you to know that and know what to expect when we start to run frequency. There's a lot of different effects. It's not something that's going to hurt you. The only 2 things that seem to make people kind of go, most is, one, I can't feel anything. Another is, I can't see anything yet. It's like I close my eyes and I try to visualize, and I'm really concentrating on visualizing, but I'm not seeing anything. The first thing you'll start to see when you visualize is nothing. You will see what I call see-feel. This is where it starts. See-feel, where you imagine something. Some of you'll be amazed. You'll find out, wow, I have a talent for actually creating inner light patterns where you can see them quickly. That comes with 6-strand subharmonic activation. If you don't happen to have that right now, you might have gone into 8-strand subharmonic activation, but you're not using the 6th one right now, so you have it turned off, which means you're not going to get pretty pictures when you close your eyes and try to put an image there. You may see a field of darkness, literally. But what you are doing, even if you can't see it yet, you are putting a pattern of light and sound there. If we're going to visualize a Hierophant symbol on the back of your forehead, inside your head, imagine it there even if you don't see light. It doesn't matter because you're still setting the mathematical code by the intention. Trace it in your mind as if you could see it. Imagine it there. Try to feel it there. Imagine you're in the dark. Okay, I can't see, but I know it's there. Try to feel its energy, because it is there with the intention that you're going to create it. With looking at what a Hierophant symbol is, you've already started to put it there. Optical pineal induction. Just by looking at something, you're sending its mathematical code into your body. It's really scary when you think about watching television. Okay, so we're going to use the Hierophant symbol to activate the Maharic shield to begin getting D12 frequency running through the body, and we're going to open the planetary biofeed interface system. With most people, this isn't open yet, and it hasn't been open for thousands and thousands of years. This is the first time that the grids have been able to do a D12 activation, and this is what's required to begin the planetary biofeed interface system opening fully. Okay, can we go to the next page, please? Let me take a sip of drink. Yeah. That's page
5-7.
Yeah. Lower page 57.
Yeah.
How did we jump? Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah. If you're wondering why before we were on page 100 and something and now we're on page 57, it's because the second series of numbers that go on the top upper right hand page of the page, they go with the presentation mylars. Okay, so some of them we're actually pulling from before and after, so they're from, the sequence is different. So it's not a mistake. It's just the fact that some of them we're using the upper corner numbers. So we'll just tell you the bottom page numbers because it's easier to find them in your text that way. Yes. $5:30. Okay, well, I'd like to, let's see. The next page is, yeah, I'm thinking we can run this. Oh, shoot. How far until we get to exercise 1? Good Lord. Yeah. Yeah, oh, my God. Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, you're just reminding me, say, if we're going to take that break anywhere around 6 o'clock, you're saying 5:30 might be a good time. We go right back into it. It's a 15-minute. So we'll go for 15 more minutes, then take a 15-minute breather, and then come back. Okay?
117.
117. Okay. Well, we're going to run both of these tonight, which means I've got to flip through fast.
Well, we can take them out.
Let me see. Okay, I want to show them that and this together. Okay. Yeah, I'll show them that for a minute. Okay. All right, this diagram here, the one that's on page 57 in your text, yes? That is the beginning of using the Hierophant symbol code. Now, as we progress in Kathara healing and also in running the Maharata current, this flat symbol, after a while, and you have to start it as a flat symbol code. That means one thing mathematically. If you make that a three-dimensional star, you've changed the mathematical input. It means something else. We have learned to progress where we start with this to begin the activation of the Maharic shield. But then we progress. The first thing was up to a three-dimensional six-pointed star, Merkaba star. From there, we started doing stars with more points because each one was bringing more of the Maharic shield into activation. We got up to, I don't even remember what the last one was, 17,000 something or other star points, which at that point you're envisioning a little ball of light with lots of spines on it, and you're telling it how many spines are there because there's no way you're going to count them all. Okay? So this is the beginning. If you don't use the Hierophant symbol code in its flat two-dimensional form, it's not going to activate the grounding portions of the Maharic shield that's going to allow the current to come through. So you start with this. Once your body gets used to running the current, then you can go up to increasing how much frequency you can pull with the same exercise. So in the beginning, you use the flat the flat six-pointed star. After you run the Maharic shield exercises for a while, start to play with it. Ask your higher self, your avatar self, for a feel on a number. What number should I use? Should I use just a three-dimensional star, six-pointed? Maybe a three-dimensional 12-pointed? Maybe a three-dimensional 2,000-pointed? What's good for me? You'll start to get feedback. You'll get a feel for how many numbers you should put on that star. And if you realize that the more you use the Hierophant symbol, the more you run a Maharic seal activation, the more D12 frequency you are progressively building in the body. You're building the body's ability to hold it for longer periods, which means you're building the body's ability to hold it in the DNA, to hold the DNA active and open for longer periods. You're also increasing your ability to transmit. If you want to be able to facilitate healing in others, you have to be able to hold the current yourself first before you can transmit it very well. So, when you start with the Hierophant symbol and the exercises that we're going to run tonight, you can even play with it now. When you start with this, that will be the activation. But as you go, try to increase the star a little and almost like run another quick one down and see if it'll amplify your current, because it should. There will be currents amplifying. The first current we're going to open is the Maharic current that comes from the Maharic shield, which is below your feet. It'll run a pale silver stream of energy from the Earth's core through your Maharic shield up through your main vertical current of your body and up out chakra 14. That is the first place you're going to be running current, is in your main vertical current. From there, by tomorrow, when we get into learning how to direct that current with the triadic phase currents, we'll be making balls of that in different chakras so we can move it to different places, and we will be opening the palm chakras. And I have a feeling by tomorrow evening, possibly the fingertip chakras, which is something that wasn't in Kathara 1 or 2 yet, but they're teaching us about that now, and it's not in writing, but it might be by tomorrow. If not, I'll at least give it to you verbally. Okay, so this is the beginning. This is the code we're going to start working with, and it's a combination of 11th dimensional frequency, which is dark silver, mixed with pure white frequency, that's a 12th dimensional frequency, that gives you the pale silver frequency. So it's the D11, D12 frequency that combines particle and antiparticle together. So you get the both parallel frequency and the frequency from this time matrix. So you get a full divine blueprint instead of a polarized one. Okay, where was the color chart? Is that in there somewhere? Did we pass that? We didn't pass that, did we? The color chart?
No, we haven't done it yet.
Okay. Now, the next one I'll show you. We'll do this one next year. This. We talk about the planetary biofeed interface system. Okay? It needs to go up a little, Larry. I need to see the bottom here.
Page 54.
Yeah. Okay.
Bingo caller.
Bingo caller?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, inside of your body, which we'll see where it is in a little while, but inside your body you have a Kathara 12-tree grid. That was the level 1 of your Kathara grid system. Well, the planetary body has one too. And at the center, and it's a little more complicated as far as how that fits into this, and when you fit that into that, it actually gives you the Stargate locations of where on the planet the Stargates are, which we deal with in the Templar workshop. But for now, to understand how we're going to get current out of the Earth to run our D12 frequency, and it's a gift, because every time we pull some out of the Earth pulls more out of the Sun pulls more out of the galaxy pulls more out of the universe, and the universe pulls more from Source. And Source doesn't mind at all, because it's perpetual energy and consciousness. So every time we take a gift for ourselves from the Earth by running D12 frequency up and letting the Earth gift us with that, we are allowing the Earth to gift itself from the other higher levels of the Mahara current coming down, because just like we talked about, the planet has shields, just like we have shields. There's a Maharic shield that holds the divine blueprint for a person. The planet has one, the sun has one, the galaxy has one, and the universe has one, and each of the 5 harmonic universes have one. The process of getting Source's consciousness and energy current coming in is the process of literally feeding it down from the bigger ones through into the smaller ones. So as we bring into ourselves and allow ourselves to receive, we are also allowing the planet to receive, and the galaxy, etc., etc. So it's not that we're taking something. It's not that we now owe somebody something because we took something and it might make them have something less. A lot of people are like, oh, I shouldn't take from the Earth. I want to give to the Earth, and I want to take from the Earth. You will be giving to the Earth by allowing the Earth to give to you. This is a principle that also applies in human relationships. A lot of us, especially more spiritually mature people, have gotten into this space where they're not takers anymore. They don't run around trying to take energy from people. They do the opposite. They give and give and give and give, but they actually buffer and don't allow themselves to receive. Oh, no, that's okay, I don't need that. No, you keep it, you have it. You know, to the point where you don't have what you need. You ought to be nice to have that, but you're so conditioned to tell yourself that you don't deserve to have it, you don't let yourself receive. You're actually blocking a flow of current that way. You're blocking the universe from feeding you, just like if you tell the Earth, no, I'm not going to let you give me D12 frequency. Well, that frequency is going to sit in the Earth grids. It's going to sit there, and it's not going to let the Earth pull any new refreshed current in. If we keep the circulation going by allowing ourselves to receive as well as to give, including when we're dealing with the Maharic seal, allow the Earth to give to us. We are doing the Earth a favor by allowing it to give to us, and we are doing ourselves a favor if we allow other people to give to us, but we're doing them a favor too, and vice versa. So we can understand that flow of energy. They were all meant to have a perpetual supply, and you get it by giving it and allowing it to be given to you. Whenever you block the flow on either end, you create energy blockage. So here we have the planetary biofeed interface system, the stargates of the planet, through the connection of Stargate 1 to Earth core, because we're going to be connecting to Earth core, where the first Kathara center in our body will actually pick up frequency from the first Kathara center in the planetary grid. This happens through chakra 13. Our chakra 13 is located in the Earth's core. Everybody's is located there. It's where we connect to Earth's planetary shields, the Maharic shield and the smaller shields. That is the feed line that we get our current through, that we get our higher dimensional current through, or even our 3-dimensional current. So what we're going to do is open this circuitry here when we begin the processes of activating the Maharic shield and using the Hierophant mathematical code will be sent down in the body through the chakra system and down in to stimulate our Kathara Center 1. Our Kathara Center 1 is located in the 13th chakra at its core. So we're going to open this part of ourselves and allow the full set of frequencies that go with that to start flowing through. Right now we only have about a third of those frequencies flowing through. It's one of the reasons we die so young. Our races die so young. We were never designed to die in the first place, but not even 75 to 100 years. This is really bad. I mean, even in the biblical days they lived to be 800 years old, and they really did. So when we begin to open this is the key, this link between Kathara Center 1 and the planetary grids and Kathara Center 1 in our own body grids. Because it's through that link that we can begin to pull more of the D12 current into our body. It's also through that link that when we get into Templar mechanics, where we decide we want to help the Earth as well directly, that we learn to send energy down into the Earth's grids, where our bodies, because we've conditioned them to hold enough D12 subharmonics, can actually help heal areas on the planet and restore their divine blueprint progressively, which will block progressively any types of manipulations that are being done to the planetary grids to cause harm here. So this is a key to not only personal healing, it's also a key to planetary healing and to major world service issues if you go in, if you want to go in that direction. Okay, next one please. Okay.
104.
Yeah, 104. Now, I'm really hoping before break we get through that. God knows how many pages it's going to take to get to where I'm dying to show you where your Kathara grid is in your body, because that's the fun part. It's kind of like, okay, where is it? It's like, okay, I've got one. All right, I want to run this current. Where is it? How do I do it? Where's my Maharic shield? Let's go. I know. I feel it.
3 frames away.
Okay, well, I want to keep them in sequence, though, because then they'll be like, wait a minute, what did that mean? That's because we skipped 4 pages. I don't want to do that to you either, so we're getting there. Okay, now, this part is important also because it gives us an idea of what we're supposed to function like and what we'll progressively be restoring in our own body template, but also bringing back to the race. As we heal ourselves, we are doing a great favor to the human race and the indigo race on this planet. We're bringing back a potential that was almost lost and outbred, genetically outbred from this race where it couldn't be regenerated. We are regenerating it, so these potentials come back. Now, growth through time. You remember, time's all happening at once. So why does it seem like we start out as fetuses and then we grow to be children? We become babies and then children and then grown-ups and then die and fall apart. Well, why do we get this image if it's all really happening at once? Growth through time is created through frequency accretion. Accretion means bringing in, drawing in to the self. In this context, that's how that word is used. Frequency accretion. Drawing frequency bands from the dimensional unified fields of consciousness into the personal morphogenetic field, which expands the personal morphogenetic field. All right, what we're doing is turning on more flashlight sequences in our templates, which gives us the same. What that says is drawing frequency bands in. What does that mean? We're pulling them from here to here? Not exactly. They're already in here. We're turning them on. We're turning on light bulbs. The more light bulbs you turn on, the more hologram is projected. We move through time, and we start out with a very little bit of light bulbs on. A very little tiny bit at conception. There's a very little tiny bit, little spark of light. A light bulb turns on that allows for a D12 current to anchor, to give it a divine blueprint, so an individual can happen. From that point, that fetal body, that conceived body, has to expand itself. It has to be able to hold multiple dimensions of consciousness before a being can actually live in there. Many miscarriages happen with baby bodies that there was something wrong with the genetic combination of that particular conception, where there wasn't enough frequency. The body couldn't hold, the little baby body or the fetal body couldn't hold enough frequency to allow the soul to put an anchoring rod of frequency into the body. Fetal integration process is the process by which you, as an avatar and as an oversoul and as a soul and as a being with a part of you in D3, anchor your consciousness into a very specific mathematical template that encodes your scalar grid where your consciousness is stationed into a very particular biological orientation. On this side of the fence, that's what's happening on the non-manifest side that you don't see here. On this side of the fence, what you get is a fetal pattern, which has a portion of the DNA template from the mother and a portion from the father. They get put together and melded into a new one, and it's into that new pattern that at first isn't a separate person yet. Okay? When conception occurs, that is not an individual yet. It is the potential for an individual. At that point, the soul has not anchored. No soul, no Christos has yet anchored itself, put down literally a rod of frequency to anchor into the first of the first 8 cells. The first of the first 8 cells in cell division, when a zygote is formed, they hold the potential for soul integration, which is fetal integration, the process, bless you, of an individual life choosing that body pattern to grow it to be human. This means that no matter how much Catholic Church wants to tell you that life starts at conception, they're wrong, because it can't within the natural laws of physics that apply to the formation of body forms in the hologram. Because if you tried to do fetal integration right at the moment of conception or right after, you'd blow the pattern apart, because the frequencies involved, the 12 subharmonics, need time to fill out in the form by using the template that was inherited from both mother and father. So what you really have is part of the mom and part of the dad are growing a shell. The shell has consciousness. It has body consciousness. It has part of the mom's consciousness and part of the dad's consciousness. But it's not an individual yet. It doesn't have its own soul that came in for its own purposes. This is also where you end up. The sins of the father and the mother get passed down to the child, because that part of the mother's consciousness and part of the father's consciousness that get totally embedded in the gene code that starts the body that we integrate into. We take on a part of their miasms, or the part of their DNA template that are twisted. This is why so many times the issues that have been in our parents' life that were never resolved, we end up like the next generation, and we take a layer of it off, and then our kids take another layer of it off. So we are literally trying to heal. We heal the generations before us because we take on what's left that's still messed up in their template. Now, there were cycles of growth. Growth through time is the expansion process where that little tiny zygote body, that little tiny thing that's going to be a fetus that's not yet strong enough to hold a soul, begins to expand, which means it begins to draw frequency into itself. It has a kathara grid at conception. That kathara grid was inherited from both sides, the mother line and the father line gene code. It has a sentient body consciousness, like a rock does. That is what it is at that point. It can move. It doesn't think in the same way. What it does is think thought patterns coming from mother and father. It actually still has an energy connection to mom and dad. So what the baby thinks before fetal integration is not the baby's thoughts. It's mom and dad's thoughts from the subconscious level. So it becomes a vessel actually for the processing of some of mom and dad's stuff. Now, between the 33rd and 56th day after conception is when there has been enough of the little flashline sequences turned on in that physical structure that a fetal integration can take place. A fetal integration involves the anchoring of cords of frequency from the higher dimensional fields and from the D3 field, down here, D1, 2, 3, into what were the first 8 cells that formed after conception. They are the anchoring rods for 12 currents of frequency. And the first one to come in is the Christos spark, a D12 spark of energy that sets a divine blueprint within that individual. At that point, a silver cord starts to form, a pale silver cord that literally runs through the biofields and connects you to your D12 Maharic shield template. The Maharic shield manifests below your feet, but the silver cord looks like it goes up through the universe, because it does in the spatial relationships of the hologram. Once that happens, that is fetal integration. That means somebody decided they want to live in that body. Somebody's going to inhabit that baby body. It's going to become a person. If fetal integration doesn't take place, after a time, it will become a miscarriage. And that doesn't mean that a baby died. What it means is that there was something in that particular vessel, or agreements that were made, that maybe there was a person who wanted to come in to that, but maybe there was an arrangement made with the parents that this was not the right time. From D4, 5, and 6 even. If you had that consciousness opened in your body, you wouldn't mourn over a process like that. You probably wouldn't end up with a fetal pattern in there that you weren't going to take to term anyway. A lot of times people end up having pregnancies here that was not part of their divine blueprint at all. And sometimes they get inhabited. Sometimes they're by souls that are still trying to evolve hard. Sometimes they get inhabited by things you don't want in there. Some children aren't born innocent. And that's another part of the healing thing that is very hard to deal with. I mean, did you ever see the show Rosemary's Baby from way back? And you know, people are like, oh, isn't that terrible? That could never happen. You know what? It does happen. There are babies born in various types of ways. One without souls. Some actually never have anything connecting directly in to do fetal integration, where they actually integrate with the DNA template, but they may have a fallen angelic overlord play with it and keep the body systems alive so they can use it as a vessel of harm. There are children like this in the world. There are some that are incarnate dark avatars, that are incarnate dark oversouls or souls. That doesn't mean that you hate them. It doesn't mean that you say they're bad, they can't be fixed, because they still have a little leeway before they can get all of their meanness into body, that you might be able to help them make a link to the Christos. And if you can, by helping them run D12 frequency, you might get their original avatar before they got twisted. Their original divine blueprint self will anchor the body for them, and it will take over, and you can actually, a child that started out as somebody who came in purposely to do damage, can actually be turned around and put back on a Christos path. Sometimes it can't be done. Now, it's interesting, growth through time. As that little baby fetus pattern expands to where it can hold a consciousness, and that expands to become a baby, and that expands out to birth itself into the world and become a child and then grows up. This is a process of frequency accretion, which means we're bringing more frequency, piece by piece, strand by strand, flash line by flash line, into the body hologram. And it's filling out the hologram and making it bigger as we go along. That's why when we have 12 strands activated, we're much taller than we are here. Our bodies are much bigger. There's also more space between our atoms. So there were specific growth rhythms that were natural for a 12-strand being that constituted age lines. These, when we look at this here, it says the kathara grid is functioning proper. When the kathara grid is functioning properly, there are set morphogenetic field expansion periods within the linear growth cycles of the human body. What that means is, when the DNA and the kathara grid beneath it are working the right way, there are stages of growth that specific levels of integration will take place. Fetal integration is what starts the new life. Then at a certain point, soul integration begins, which means strands 4, 5, and 6 would turn on, and your soul consciousness would fully embody. And then after you got those frequencies in body, the next expansion would be your oversoul getting into body. Strands 7, 8, and 9 would activate, and it would bring in your 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensional levels of oversoul consciousness. And then the final one would be your Christos avatar self. Now if you're an indigo, there's even more after this. But as a 12-strand human, the next and last phase of expansion would be becoming your immortal self. This is how it was supposed to work, where you would get your strands 10, 11, and 12 activated, and you would be running full 12-dimensional consciousness and frequency. You would have an immortal breatharian body that you would have the conscious ability to manifest and demanifest at will. You would understand massive amounts of things you can't even imagine right now that you might be able to understand about the planet, the galaxy, the universe. You would have memory of all your 1,728 selves and be able to flip your consciousness between any one of them, like TV station. You'd be able to flip there, oh, now I'm in 2 million BC, you know, this kind of thing, and actually be aware of yourself in all of those spaces. And the process that used to take in terms of time in density 1, fetal integration started at birth, and the first phase of growth would be getting into D1, 2, 3 consciousness, all right, where you'd have to integrate all the frequencies of dimension 1, dimension 2, and dimension 3 to create a personality incarnate grounding base for the rest to expand into. Between ages 11 and 12 chronological years, using the year system, the time translations we have now, by 11 or 12, fetal integration, the whole process of personality integration would be done, and the next harmonic integration would start, which means harmonic 2 integration would start at age 12 and go to age 22, and it would be soul integration. That's when the soul would begin fully experiencing and expressing in the body. We're going to go into a fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional consciousness. Between 22 and 33, you would have oversoul integration, and 33 and 44, you'd have full avatar integration. So by the age of 44, you had transmuted the body from what appeared to be a mortal body with three-dimensional consciousness into a six-dimensional consciousness that had a semi-etheric body and could turn its gene code on from two harmonics to the next level, the etheric consciousness, where you have the oversoul consciousness in the body, which means you'd be able to control your DNA and move between three harmonic universes. You'd be able to take stargates between here and the next level up and the next level up. And by the time you were here, this was graduation. That's where you were a master. You were fully embodied. And you always were that person up there, that avatar. But to try to get yourself in this body took a bit of time. You had to slowly and gently expand the body to be able to hold all that you are and all that you were before you got in here. So these were the natural processes. If the kathara grid's working properly, the body does not die, but rather progressively transmutes into progressively less dense states of matter in an immortal body form via the accretion, or the pulling in of the frequencies, of four harmonics of frequency. Present kathara grid distortions block the integration of harmonic 2 and begin a condition called molecular compaction, which creates body degeneration and death. They block the process right here. We start to die at age 12. That's when the death hormones start to happen. That's when what's naturally supposed to happen, where our strand 3 is fully activated and strand 4 is supposed to start to go into activation to bring in our astral consciousness, and after that our archetype at D5. This is blocked, where these frequencies try to come in, and they come in, and it's kind of like, imagine a hammer on crystal. If our DNA templates, or the lower strands, or all of the strands, are crystalline structures, and these higher frequencies are coming in, and they're supposed to have receivers that are ready to receive them here, that allow natural expansion. Those natural frequencies start to come in to the body, but because those receivers have been blocked and twisted, they can't receive and draw into the crystalline template of the lower strands. They come in like a sledgehammer, and those frequencies hit and pound on the scalar grids of the lower strands, progressively twisting them and crushing them and making them worse, where they can hold less and less frequency. What that does is create real messes within the body template, which translate into chemical messes in the DNA, which create literal genetic mutations in chemical terms within the body. And it sets in motion a series of chemical and hormonal transactions within the body that create progressively toxic chemical combinations in the body. That's why we get cancers. That's why we end up with heart disease. That's why the sicknesses that plague our races, they start here. We start to poison ourselves at age 12. When we begin to reset the imprint for health, we begin to change this process. And it's not something you fix overnight. It's like when your heart sealed 3 times and cancer goes away. I wish it were that simple. There are levels and levels of frequency distortions, template distortions, that have built up to create conditions that we call illness now, that are illness in our bodies now. But understanding that the beginnings of healing are beginning to work with resetting the original divine blueprint, that's our saving grace. Then we just have to learn how to, okay, we know how to set the divine blueprint. Then how do we expedite the process where it gets into the layers that need it most? And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow evening, the new stuff that we're giving. It's how to expedite the processes we learn with these processes. Okay, this chart on page 60 just gives you the rundown on the levels of self that are supposed to come into the body, the natural processes, the original human genetic imprint, personality integration, which is called telluric integration. Remember the telluric shield that goes with the elemental kingdom in D1, 2, and 3? That's called telluric. Density 1, telluric. Birth through age 12 expands the morphogenetic field through accreting the frequencies of dimensions 1, 2, and 3 and activating strand templates 1, 2, and 3. And this takes you right up through soul integration. It explains, so you can look at it yourself because I already talked about it. Soul integration, oversoul integration, Christos, avatar integration. That's how our bodies are supposed to work. This is what they're doing right now. Contemporary human genetic imprint. The personality integration starts at birth and it doesn't even finish at death. Soul integration does not start. Doratic integration, which is density 2 integration, doesn't even start because those frequencies can't enter the body template, because the template at the kathara level is mutated, and that's what creates the genetic mutation. It's not that the genetic mutation itself does not create the problem. That is one of the symptoms of the problem. It is the kathara grid distortions that are creating the genetic mutation itself. Oversoul integration, don't get to do it. Christos avatar integration, don't get to do it. Blockage. Deterioration and death of the physical body occur rather than progressive frequency accretion for cellular transmutation and dimensional ascension. So in other words, we die instead of ascend. We become mortal and finite instead of the joyful avatar beings who are immortal and eternal. It doesn't change the fact that we're eternal. We are eternal, but our bodies haven't been. We can begin to change that process and bring the process of immortality back to this race. We're not going to bring it back in the next 5 years. We're going to begin the healing process. So whatever our potential is, the best we can be, we'll be able to become. That doesn't mean we're going to be able to ascend in the next 5 years, but we might be. There's going to be a lot of opportunities that you don't get every day popping up in the next 5 or 10 years. Yes? Okay, yes, question.
When is the personality coming into the fetus then? Is that still in the womb or is that at birth? And what happens with abortion?
Okay, I was going to go there and then I didn't. All right. The first part of your question was at what point do you come in? Do you do fetal integration? After anywhere between 33 and 56 days, you can. Now, at 33 days, the pattern may not be ready yet. Might have to wait till 56 days till it fills out enough, but it should be able to hold your consciousness by then. Then it's up to you. Then you have the choice as an incoming being who's incarnating into that form. You have a choice as to whether you like hanging out with mom, or you have better things to do, or you can't stand the person and you're just clearing the karmic debt here, where you might come in 2 minutes after birth. Right? Sometimes the soul will hang around in the astral level. It has to anchor to some degree so it can begin feeding more energy to the fetal pattern and the baby pattern to keep it alive. But many times it will be an overshadow, which means it hangs out in the fourth dimensional frequencies and it sends frequencies down in and puts tap rods in. It's anchored itself in, but it hasn't fully integrated into the DNA template. So it can still run around and float around and remember it. Because souls, when they're incarnating, remember, at that point you still remember that as soon as you get into that body, it's going to be lights out. You're going to forget who you were and you're going to start all over again as if you never knew yourself. And a lot of us will do that as late as possible in the process. I remember coming in, I think I came in, I had a heck of a time coming in actually. Once I realized who it was, I agreed to be mom because we'd had some interesting experiences in other time vectors that she wasn't very nice to me as a male person. Terror was the first feeling that I had. Oh no, not that one, right? And I remember trying to run back out of the body. When you do fetal integration, you kind of feel what your perception will be is something like spiraling your consciousness down through what's the crown chakra at the top of the head, and you progressively expand down in and anchor into the lower chakras and into the DNA template. Now I remember getting about down to here, to the astral level, and going, oh no, I remember that one. I know that person. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. So I tried to spiral back up the other way. Where I tried to reverse my spiral and crawl back out, and I did. I got myself back out and the crown chakra started to close, which meant the baby body would have died because it was going to drop in frequency. So I had a little help with people who knew I was contracted to do some stuff this lifetime, where they actually opened the seal on the fourth heart chakra, the baby body, which usually doesn't open that young. And they literally ripped it open and threw me in. and stretched me out and said, there you go, you're in. So we each have a different story as how fetal integration went for us. And it's fun when you start to realize you have this memory with you, that you can begin to access it. Because a lot of us has terrible pain associated with it. Where, just imagine, you're a person who knows yourself as an avatar, who just feels free. You're a free creation being. You're at one with God. You know your connection to God. And you start to get into this body and you know you're going to feel lost and scared and lonesome. Now, most of us contracted as human souls or indigo souls, and even a lot of the Anunnaki or Drac souls who were working Emerald Covenant, contracted here to come and help this place in this space-time. They knew they were walking into a battleground. They knew they were walking into a final conflict drama that had to do with fallen angelics who, after millions and millions of years of trying to take over the stargates here, were going to come in for one last round. This was where the good versus evil was going to head off, because the Christos realignment mission was going to be done here. So we came in with a sense of responsibility, but also a sense of sadness. So there's a lot, for a lot of us, if you start to go into where your fetal memory is and just try to lean into it. Okay, let me try to remember when I was a baby. Let me try to remember me when I came in. There was a point. I mean, it's absolutely, you are here. There's absolutely no doubt that you have a fetal integration point, or you wouldn't be sitting in the room. You can go and ask your own Christos self, say, just be with me with this and help me to find this. Because you'll also find, right on the other side, right before you went into the go in and expand into the fetal pattern, you had all the reasons why you were coming. You knew why you were coming. You knew why you chose the parents you did. You knew the mission you were on. You knew what time you were probably going to check out and leave. You knew what you were here to do. So there's a joy on the other end of the sorrow that you might have felt in having to literally shut all your perceptions off and literally like walking around in the dark for a whole lifetime just to rediscover who you were. These are some of the things that you can look for in yourself. And as we begin to do that, when we begin to find these memories, we will also begin to make a connection between, in our DNA strands. Like with me, I had, you could call it a gift, or you could also call it a curse, because I got thrown in my fourth chakra, which meant that fourth chakra was opened while the fetal body was still in the womb, which meant it was picking up astral frequencies and processing D4 frequencies much sooner than it should. I came in with open incarnational memory. I remembered my whole fetal integration process from the time before I could speak. I could talk to things. In fact, I used to terrify my mother, she tells me, because I used to lay there with my eyes open while I was technically asleep and talk to the angels and tell her, go away, the angels are coming to take me away, I belong with them. And I would tell her things like this. You know, I could freak you out when your kid, you know, kid is like just learning to talk, and these are some of the things that is like staring out into space wide awake while it's asleep, you know. So, you begin to get fetal integration memory when you activate fourth strand. So it's not something you have to wait till 12 strands are activated to get. If it's too traumatic for you, you will find a part of yourself isn't letting you have it yet. If you can't remember it and you're looking for it, there's a trauma there. It may be a trauma that had to do with who your parents were this time and why you chose this situation that you're not ready to handle. But if you look and you really want to know, it will be brought to you, and it will, you know, your own higher consciousness will help you to have it. You can find out amazing things by remembering who you were right before you integrated into the fetal pattern. Okay? There are other levels of, like when soul integration was supposed to start at age 12, there is another probable reality field that is quite far removed in frequency from this particular time matrix. But it is a reflection of this time matrix in which things did not go wrong. We have parts of ourselves in that matrix as well. And they give us strength and they send us strength. So somewhere you have an age 12 memory where you actually were able to do soul integration. That implies in that line of probability all the way up to age 44, there's a 44-year-old self around there someplace in a planet that's similar to this that evolved different, that has fully embodied as an avatar. You have a self that fulfilled the divine blueprint pattern, but it is not in this time matrix system, but it still exists in the cosmic matrix, and you can make a link through your knowing that it's there and through your own DNA to help it send you frequency to help sustain, just like we can help you sustain an activation in the DNA because we transmit frequency that we have in our bodies. They can help you too. They're aware of you. Those levels of self are aware that our levels of self are here. So anyway, we'll move on. These are the 4 natural cycles of morphogenetic expansion. Just so you know as far as what that is.
Oh, anatomy.
Oh, anatomy. Levels of human anatomy. How are we doing on that break time?
10 to 6.
10 to 6.
So we're going to give him 15 minutes now. You're going to go on the lady clock, right? Yeah, do it.
Yeah, you want to do it now? Okay. All right. Well, before we get into this, because it's just going to go right through to technique, we're going to take our 15-minute break now. And I don't mean to torture you, but I think that's going to be the last one before 8 o'clock, before we leave. So now's the time to do all the, like, vital runs and those kind of things. You know? Okay. We're back. Okay. Now, remember yesterday I told you about how once in a while we'll pick up the pace and like the flash lines start to go faster and I start to talk a lot faster and we start to kind of like cruise? Well, we're going to try to do some of that tonight because before we leave, I want to get you through enough of the theory where what we do makes sense, and I want to get you into 2 techniques tonight. So you can work with the first 2 techniques. So when we come in tomorrow, we can get into opening the triadic phase currents. And first you have to learn about what they are. And first, before you know any of that stuff, you need to learn some basic things like where are all these good things in your body? Where is your Maharic shield? Where are your other shields? Where are your kathara grids? Those kind of things. So we're going to go into that now as far as the anatomy. The graphs are in your book. Everything you'll see up here is in your book, so you can study it on your own. In fact, this can be used as a correspondence course. A lot of people that can't get to workshops actually just literally try to learn all this stuff with the book and whatever. We have one of the videos from a workshop, you know, with the package. So we're going to go through this. I guess I'm going to do this myself for